Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the NEMT Platform Podcast. Today, we are joined by Jimmy from J&J Transportation, a well-known NEMT provider serving the Central and Northern Virginia area. Jimmy has been, using NEMT Platform since January of 2025, and he has built a very strong operation in his region, and it gives us great pleasure to have him online with us today on this podcast. Jimmy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for the invitation.
Good to have you. Great to have you here. Well, to start off, Jimmy, could you briefly introduce yourself and tell us about J&J Transportation?
My name is Jimmy Sonnenberg. I am the co-owner of J&J Transportation. My wife is the other co-owner, which owns majority part of the company.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Jimmy, I'm always curious, why NEMT industry? So let's start with the very basics. How did you first get into the NEMT industry? What motivated you to start your own company?
Well, it's kind of a funny story because I work for the airline industry. So I'm a traveling technician that fly from airport to airport. It was a company that came to my house, one of the drivers, and he kept asking me to start an NEMT business or work for them. So I don't need to work for them. And he was like, "Oh, your wife should do it." I said, "My wife doesn't have to work." And he kept coming, and he came for like 9 months straight. So every time he came, I kept Googling the NEMT. I kept Googling the company. I kept Googling trying to figure out what this is. And he kept coming and coming, kept showing me his check. And I was like, "Oh, impressive." And as he kept coming, he was like, "Please," and he came almost 7 days a week and then just kept asking. And I was like, "Well, all right, I'm going to go buy a vehicle." So we bought a car, a Toyota Highlander, and I told my wife, I said, "If it doesn't work out, then I have a Toyota Highlander. I could drive back and forth back to the airport every day." I said, "At least I got a reliable car, compared to the truck, sucks gas. It's a diesel truck." And then we started in that way. We worked for another company. And as we worked for that company, I kind of figured out what she was needing me for. She needed me to bring her business in this area that I live in. And it was to
Right.
bring her business so that her brother-in-law could operate out of this area. As I started noticing, I started bringing in clients that had longer trips. And I kind of got them in to say, "Hey, can you do this as a standing order?" She would take it from me and give it to him. And every trip that I did, that was a standing order, she kept taking it from me and giving it to him. And I said, now I see what she's doing. And as I kept noticing that every good trip that I took, she would give it to her brother-in-law. So at that point, I started thinking in my head, why am I working for her when I can work for myself? So I started the background, started the paperwork, filed for all the certificates that I needed, got the insurance, got everything that I needed. But it took a long time before any brokers would call you. The first broker that called me was 19 months down the road. And by the
Wow.
time they called me, we ended up separating from her because she got enough business where her brother-in-law could run. And by the time she stopped needing us, my business started.
Right.
And that's kind of how I got into this business.
Wow. I could only imagine the challenges that you had to face, in those days early on. When you were starting out at that period, that particular time, what were some of the biggest challenges that you can share with us? Like, getting the first contract with the broker, just the early on challenges that, you really think that, want to share
Brokers
with
is the
them.
biggest challenge. I hear people talk about private pay, private pay, private pay. Private pay is okay, but only private pay is like here and there. It's not a everyday event like a broker is. A broker will get you work and have you work every day. Unlike a private pay, they might need you just Monday or they might need you Thursday. You know, Everybody keeps saying private pay, and I notice the stuff on private pay, but I don't live in a big city. I live in a rural area. So private pay doesn't really do me any good out here. Maybe if I lived in a big city like Richmond or anything like that, then yes, private pay would do me good. The challenges of getting with a broker is for them to trust you. And the trust is, that you can provide. You have reliable vehicles, you have reliable credentialed drivers, they have to take drug tests, you have to do all that. You do a lot more spending than you start bringing in money when you first start.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, but is starting off as difficult or as is later on scaling your operations? Like as you grew your company, what what helped you scale your operations and manage more trips and drivers efficiently?
So when we first started, we were using a well ride system, which was a motive care system. The system didn't integrate good with one, like access to care. It wouldn't integrate. So you had to manually put it in. And for some reason, sometimes it wouldn't accept certain names or certain trips or certain people. And it got to be a pain because then you get a no-show. No-show ended up being a lot of money. A no-show could be anywhere from 150 to $1,500. You know, I got tired of paying fees. I started looking at Route Genie, Route Box, all these other platforms. And I called each one of them in a row. And I wanted to see what they were offering. When I called you guys, I don't know the gentleman's name that I talked to at the beginning, but when I talked to him, he explained to me how the process works. The guy who operates the system actually was an NEMT driver, and that he understands the systems that we do, what we go through, the challenges that we have, routing, billing. So I was like, all right. And he was like, there's no contract. Come with us. We'll show you. The greatest part that I liked was I'm not too far from your headquarters. Your headquarters came to my house. When they came to my house, he made it so much easier where he sat down beside us. I had my daughter, my son, my wife. We all sat right there, and he actually showed us the whole platform, showed us how it works. And we sat there, and he assigned us a trip, and he showed us how everything worked. I'm not sure they do it to everybody, but when he did it to me, that made me feel more like he wanted my business and made me feel more
Right.
important that I want to come to this company to try it out. And he's like, no contract. If you don't like it next week, cancel us and we're good. And it just, from that point on, I mean, I actually got to grow a lot bigger. When we started, we only wanted 5 vehicles, 5 drivers, 5 vehicles. That's the maximum we wanted. We wanted a small little home family business. We've grown to 36 drivers and I think 42 vehicles. And every day, as well as today, I had 6 guys call me wanting to work for us. I don't advertise. I don't say anything. I kind of just do my thing. I just never wanted to grow. But using the platform, the NEMT platform, allowed me to get bigger, better, and faster. Let me run more efficiently. And the billing used to take me 2, 3 days. Friday, I sit down and do billing. Billing all the brokers, billing all the contractors, billing everything that I do. And a lady named Ash that works for you guys at NEMT Platform was like the world made my difference in everything that I did. I got to spend more time with my family. She takes all the burden from me, and it's done. I mean, at the end of the day, she's like, billing's done. And it's like, you got to be kidding me. I used to spend, 8 hours a day, 3 days a week, trying to do just one broker. When she does it in a day, and I'm like, man, it's great. She's made my life where I spend more time with my family, and that's the time that I can't get back is time with the family. And she's
Yeah.
taken all that burden away from me.
How do you get broker contracts? What's your approach about it?
My approach was when I first started was instead of I wanted to grow. Well, I didn't want to grow. I wanted to make sure we always had work. That and the way to get work is if you find new brokers. And I started off with just one. And everybody starts off usually with the same one, which is motive care or logistic care. And then as I started with logistic care, I started looking for more brokers and I started finding access to care, Veo, Verida, started finding all these other ones. Currently to this day, I have 15 brokers that I work for that I actually have a contract with. And it's, usually everybody would tell you between November and January, there's really no work. during November and January on a daily basis, we average about 258 to 300 trips a day. And
Awesome.
using a platform makes it where it's so
Wow.
simple to assign the trips, to move trips, to instantly do something. It actually texts the driver. You could text the clients. It made, instead of me having to be on the phone all the time, it made everything simple. I just click a button and it does everything by itself. The simplest things that people take for granted is being on the phone trying to get a hold of 350 people. There's no way to do that. I don't have a big fleet of office personnel in my shop. I only have, there's only like 5 of us. And then, that's a lot of people to call every day.
Absolutely. Well, Jimmy, an important area I want you to share your expertise on is drivers and fleet management. Driver shortage is something that many providers struggle with. And what has worked for you when it comes to recruiting and retaining good drivers? Can you share some insights with us?
Well, the funny thing is, I don't recruit drivers. I don't go out there and advertise. I don't put nothing out. I don't do anything. I just have drivers that call me all the time. They see the company driving, they talk to the drivers, and I do the business as if I was a driver, as I was a company driver, how I want to get paid. I do it as if I was an owner operator, how I would want to get paid. I do everything as how I would want to be done and treated if I worked for the company. So the way I do everything, people might not agree. They talk, everybody talks about money, money, money. I don't worry about money. You know, as long as you build a clientele and you have a software that can make that clientele get to their appointment on time, pick them up on time, they can send you a text right away on time. It automatically goes to the platform on time. Everything can run efficient because it always notifies my dispatchers, the ones that dispatch all the trips. And the drivers will end up staying. But if you don't treat your drivers like you're a family, like you're their brother or anything like that, you're not going to have anybody that's going to stay for you. You know, I usually don't tell people what I pay my drivers because companies think that's a wrong approach. But again, I mean, if you're going to pay your drivers $15 or $18 an hour, you go work at Walmart and do the same thing for a lot less. You giving them incentive to push to run. My drivers compete against each other. All the company drivers that I have, they compete against each other. Who's going to bring a $2,000 home check a week? You know, they're right at it, and one driver passes it every week. So I mean, as a company driver, he's bringing home. He's not going nowhere. You bring in 1,500 to 2,000 dollars a week as a company driver. You don't have to pay for a car, oil change, tires, maintenance, gas. Who wouldn't want to do that?
Absolutely. If you could please share a message, guidelines, tips for anyone who is starting out right now in the NEMT industry. What are the do's and the don'ts? You've already touched upon your early challenges, but anything for a person, anyone who wants to start out in this industry.
Before you start, make sure the first thing that you do is make sure that the brokers are hiring in your area. You know, when we started in Ohio, so we actually have a Virginia base and we actually have an Ohio base. Before you start, make sure you do your research. Make sure the brokers are hiring, you know, and make sure, don't let people tell you, oh, they don't pay nothing. It's not always about what you make per mile. It's about how much volume you can get. You know, when I first started out, even I'll give you an example too, with access to care. I started out with a higher rate. And I was like, why am I not getting any trips? I'd get a trip here, get a trip there. I might do 3 trips a day. Today, I do over 140 trips a day with access to, or MTM now. I do almost 140 trips a day with MTM. And it's because I learned that let me drop the price just a little bit. Now I'm the first person they call. So instead of me doing, 10 trips a day or whatever, now I'm doing 148 trips a day. Volume is where you make your money. Don't let anybody ever tell you that, oh, it's about how much you get per mile. It's volume. As long as you can get the volume, you can make the money. I'm very successful at what I did because I looked at it at a different angle. I wasn't trying to be money hungry like a lot of companies that I've noticed around here. It's all about the money. How much can I make? How much can I make? I looked at the volume, and in the volume, I think I was at 4.8 million that I made last year. So it's
Wow.
volume.
Wow.
Volume is where I make the money.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Well,
look, if you don't mind, I want to tell the story real quick. So there's another
yeah.
provider that's in another area that I actually hooked up with an EMT. So she's getting ready to go back to the NEMT platform instead of using, I think she's using the competitor. Share her volume was, so she's been calling me all the time and she was telling me about her volume. And she was at where I was at. And I told her, always think about this. Don't always think about money. I'm not rich. I'm probably never going to be rich. I don't care about being rich. I just want to make sure that I provide a good service to all the people that I work for, all the members that I take, all the providers that I work for. As long as you treat everybody good and you do good service, the money's coming. Don't try
Right.
to be rich right away because it'll never happen.
Thank you so much for your time today, Jimmy. And you keep growing and providing the great service that you're providing.
Oh, absolutely. As long as I got you guys on my back, I got this. Especially when I got you guys and I got Ash. Ash is the most wonderful person that I've ever got to meet. And she does everything. And when I tell you she takes care of everything that I have to do with this company, she's made my life so great. And at first I wanted to get out of this business because I never spent time with my wife, my kids. We never went anywhere. I have so much time now. I get to go fishing. I get to go out, everywhere I want to go. So it's the this is a great platform. It's made my life easier. And Olivia's right now we're working with Olivia, me and Mike, to make sure it works the way I need it to work. So hopefully by next week, Olivia's gonna be working for me.
Excellent, excellent. Looking forward to your review of our AI voice bot, Olivia. And thank you so much once again, Jimmy. You have a great day. Goodbye.
Thank you. Take care.